Last night, Nick Saban came out and said essentially that the reason why Texas A&M had the number one recruiting class in the nation and why Alabama was in second spot was because Texas A&M paid all their players. And Nick Saban said that Alabama did not pay theirs and they were doing it right. So A&M finishes first, beats Nick Saban in College Station. I was down there with Outkick for that game. Remarkable night in College Station. Then A&M goes out and signs the number one recruiting class in the nation. And the discussion, and it's a good one, surrounding this has blown up in a big way. So Saban says Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M paid all their players. That's why they got so many great recruits. That's why they finished number one overall. Today at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, Jimbo Fisher fired back in a scheduled press conference that was called by Texas A&M, the likes of which I've never seen. I'm going to be honest with you. I've covered college football. You guys know I love it. Few people love it more than I do. In media, certainly. I fought to play it during COVID when everybody else was running in the opposite direction, said it was impossible to play. And Jimbo came off the top rope on Nick Saban. Said he needed to be slapped, basically, for lying. Said that Jimbo did that he would never work for him again, and there was a reason why. Some people do it the right way, cited Bobby Bowden. Other people don't. Said he had opportunities to go back and work with Nick Saban and had turned them down. Said that there were so many stories out there if people wanted to look into them. It was a very personal, it was an angry Jimbo Fisher attacking Nick Saban and the comments that Nick Saban had said. He said Saban tried to call him, that he refused to take his phone call, and that he was essentially done with their relationship. Now, a lot of different reactions from so many people out there. To me, what stood out the most was how intensely personal this was. This was Jimbo Fisher going to war effectively with Nick Saban and probably letting out a lot of resentment and anger that he's bottled up for a long time. Because remember, this is a guy who worked for Nick Saban for many years before he ended up a head coach of his own. So both of these guys, I believe, are from West Virginia. They've known each other for a very long time, had a lot of respect, at least publicly, for each other. But remember, Jimbo said he was going to kick Nick Saban's ass, and then Nick Saban fired back. This was last season. Then A&M probably plays by far the best game of the Jimbo Fisher era in beating Alabama, upsetting the Tide. By the way, FanDuel.com/Clay, October 8th. The line is already up. Alabama is a 16-point favorite in Tuscaloosa over Texas A&M. This felt like what you would see before a big boxing match. When one guy calls out the other one fires back, and they're all putting on a show to try to get as much interest from the general public as possible. But it felt like more than that. It was intensely personal. These are now two guys that don't particularly like each other. I was texting with SEC coaches, a lot of whom are fans of Outkick. I have a lot of friends now in the SEC coaching ranks. And they were talking about, oh my goodness, can you imagine what it's going to be like down in Destin for the SEC spring meetings when these coaches are in the rooms together and are in close proximity to one another and have to go face-to-face? The games are one thing, but SEC spring meetings, SEC media days, what is Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, thinking? All of those thoughts. Here were my thoughts in general. I'm going to break down both what Nick Saban is thinking and I believe what Jimbo Fisher is thinking. Then I'll tell you what I think. First of all, I don't think Nick Saban did this by accident. Nick Saban is a very, very smart guy. Pretty much everything that he puts out into the public is calculated and intended. Maybe he didn't expect it to blow up in this way. He may not have expected the fire back from Jimbo Fisher. But I think Nick Saban is unhappy with the NIL rules and the fact that effectively many schools are now paying players to come to their school. And Nick Saban may think that's a poor decision for college football. The cynic in me would say, when you are dominating like Nick Saban is, you don't necessarily want a paradigm shift to occur, right? If you have a great business, you don't want technology to evolve. The internet was not good for Blockbuster. Now, it's a little bit ironic to me about this is Nick Saban has been an incredible evolver as a coach. Remember, you go look at the way Nick Saban won the first national title at Alabama by basically defensive first dominance, by not making mistakes on offense, and compare it to how his offense has changed with Steve Sarkisian, with Lane Kiffin over the years, where you need to go out and score over 50 points to where you have a really dynamic offensive attack. I mean, just think about the difference between, let's say, Greg McElroy and Jacob Coker, two guys that Nick Saban won national championships with, and compare them with Tua Tagovailoa, with everything that happens on the offense now with Bryce Young. Think about what we saw with that evolution in quarterbacks, where you would have 3 straight first-round draft picks from Alabama, not to mention Jalen Hurts. You would have never foreseen or expected for that to occur if you went back and watched Nick Saban offenses in 2007, 2008, where the running back dominated and the quarterback was basically a game manager. He's evolved. Surprising to me personally that Nick Saban would not evolve as well when it came to NIL, because if Alabama needs to bid to get top players, it seems to me they would be able to do that because the program is hugely successful. But Nick Saban sees himself as the grandfather now of college football and often speaks out on larger college football related issues and tries to put his stamp on what ends up happening, whether it's how many games they play in the SEC, whether it's the rules about how they deal with spread offenses. Nick Saban speaks out on larger, I would say, global issues for college football now, oftentimes far more often than he discusses individual related issues with the Crimson Tide. So I don't think this was accidental. I don't think that Nick Saban got caught on a live mic and said something that he didn't anticipate turning into a big story. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. Where I think he miscalculated is, I don't think he thought that Jimbo Fisher would fire back in the way that he did. And to me, so that's my perspective on Nick Saban. I don't think he regrets anything that he said. I think he felt it. I think he meant it. I don't think that he thought Jimbo Fisher would go straight personal like he did. And this is a function of Jimbo Fisher's anger over what he perceives as an attack on his program relating to paying players. And so I think Jimbo Fisher finally said, I've had enough. I'm not going to allow this allegation that the only reason people come to Texas A&M is because we're paying them. I'm not going to allow that to become standard operating procedure. I'm going to fire back. And he fired back in an intensely personal way. This felt like a feud between two people who knew each other well. You know, sometimes when you have a married couple fight, it gets really uncomfortable. If you're at dinner with them, if you're in a location with them, and they start jabbing at each other, they both know each other so well that it gets intensely personal very quickly. This wasn't gentle ribbing. This wasn't a disagreement on rules. This was Jimbo Fisher basically sundering his longtime relationship with Nick Saban. And you can say that this had been building for some time, and I don't know where it goes from here. I would bet that Greg Sankey has been on the phone or will be on the phone with both men saying, we don't do this. We're not going to air our dirty laundry in public.